The Utah Utes have a secret weapon that is going to steamroll Texas Tech tomorrow, and we're breaking down the game today on Locked On Utes.
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for making Locked On Utes your first listen and view of the day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. If it's your first time tuning in, make sure you like and subscribe. Today's show brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights for this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved with Mazda. My name is JT Wistrcill, excited to have on one of the top football minds in the state of Utah, friend of the show, Bryan Brown, kind of to hop in to talk about this game. We're talking about the secret weapon, and we're also just going to say, hey, who on the Utah offense? The Utah defense is in for a day in Salt Lake City. And at the end, I'm going to rant about Kyle Whittingham because this injury thing is getting ridiculous. And once again, appreciate you coming on, Bryan. I'm really excited to talk about who I think Utah's secret weapon is. Who do you think I'm going to say in this game?
I actually know. Yeah. So we talked about this pre-show.
You did,
but
you paid attention.
I think you and I are aligned on this, and it's a good thing because I secret text the OC show, and only James Peterson knows the number that I text from because I have a work phone. But I secret text because I know if OC reads it on the air, then it's actually a good text. And I secret texted that this is a player that I expected to have a breakout at some point in time, that I needed to have a breakout. So regardless of whether or not I can guess it, you and I are aligned on this one.
We did talk about it pre-show, so that is my bad.
Sorry, I should have played into the gimmick a little bit more, but I was so excited to share my story.
But it was a good story. And you know who else is really good? It's Wayshawn Parker. That's who I think is Utah's secret weapon in this game. I mean, one thing to know about Wayshawn Parker, DEVON Dampier is getting all the love, right? And we're all caught up in why aren't the wide receivers doing more? But I don't feel like a lot of people, especially nationally, know who Wayshawn Parker is. Wayshawn Parker, the sophomore running back, who last year was a true freshman, led Washington State a really good offense in rushing yards. And last year he was overshadowed by John Mateer too. He already has 192 yards on the year, only 2 touchdowns. But here's what I feel like not enough people are talking about. He's averaging 7.1 yards per carry. He's also Utah's second leading rusher, despite McGuire getting more carries than him on the season. I think this is the game that Utah finally unleashes him, Bryan. He's also been a little bit of a receiver out of the backfield, had the first catch against Cal Poly that ended up, he took like for a 50-plus yard touchdown. I think he's going to go over 100 yards for scrimmage in this game. I have him over 80 yards on the ground. Tech's going to pack the box, try to stop the run. But I have Wayshawn Parker scoring 2 of the 4 Utah touchdowns I have the Utes getting in this game. I think Wayshawn Parker is having a day. This is where Jason Beck unleashes his real RB1 to me.
Yeah, I think it's all about the run game for Utah, and I think Wayshawn Parker is going to have to be a massive part of it. I think for the most part, Utah's done a good job of finding other ways to move the football and other guys to move the football in an attempt to, I don't know, save. Wayshawn is really the word that I'm looking for, but in an attempt to really play out the season as they expect. And I think you can read a lot into how Utah feels about their team and the culture and everything else in how they've played these first 3 games, where it really hasn't seemed like they've dipped into the weapons that they have to dip into. And I think part of it is because the opponent now justifies that. And to your point, Wayshawn Parker is going to be a big part of the offense. The run game is going to be a huge part of the offense as well, and as it should be. Utah is 7th in the country right now in yards per game, 290. I believe that they are, if I'm not mistaken, they're 17th in yards per carry at 6. So if you're getting 6 yards on first down every time you hand the ball off, that's immediately putting you ahead of schedule in terms of down and distance. And some of it is the level of opponent, that 20-play drive against UCLA, chewed up a lot of clock. But I think a lot of it, too, is just this scheme and what Utah can do in the run game. They can be much more versatile. It's not just under center, inside zone, handoff out of 12 personnel every single time. They're doing a lot more with it. And so they're able to gain a lot more yards because defenses are not just keying off of what they already know. They have to scheme for multiple variations and multiple ball carriers. And I think really what's going to happen is that Utah's offense is just going to wear down this Texas Tech defense, and that's going to lead to a lot of explosive plays from Wayshawn Parker.
I think that's the hope and the goal. You mentioned that 20-play drive against UCLA. I mean, that's a P4 team, right, Bryan? It's not like they're 0-3, fired their head coach already. Like, that's a P4 win, right? Utah's on their resume.
I mean, it's easy to say that UCLA sucks right now because they do. It's one of the worst
Yeah.
programs right now at the P4 level, maybe even in D1. But it's also easy to say that Utah broke UCLA because that was a team that was going into this season with a lot of hope, high expectations for themselves. It was all about Deshaun Foster getting his own guys in on the coaching staff. You talk to our guy Will at I forget where, LA Football Network, right?
There you go.
About UCLA, and I think Will Decker, good friend of mine, we'll call him friend of the program here on Locked On Utes, because and there was a lot of high hopes and anticipation for what UCLA was going to do, but it's really hard to recover when Utah just breaks your spirit the way that the Utes did, and that was supposed to be a tightly contested game. It was not supposed to be an absolutely dominating game. So say what you will about what might have been and things of that nature. I think Utah has done what they were supposed to do consistently. They've carried the banner. If you're running for 300 yards a game, I don't care if you're playing Sister Mary Thomas's poor kids from across the train tracks. Like, that's going to be a problem for opposing defenses regardless. And so if you're Texas Tech coming into this game, you've kind of done the same thing. This is your first true test. You're on the road finally. You're going to come into a bit of a buzzsaw with that Utah running game, and I can guarantee you that Kyle Whittingham, while he's not the micromanager that he's been made out to be, he's made it very clear to Jason Beck how we win games at Utah, because that is what Kyle Whittingham really excels at. He excels at clock management. He excels at possession management. He excels at just squeezing the life and the will out of opponents. And so I think you're going to see a lot of rushing. I think you're going to see a lot of versatility. Jason Beck said it in his comments this week. I don't know that we're necessarily an explosive play offense. We may just be a grinded out offense. And for Utah fans, that should be a thrill because it minimizes the potential for turnovers, and it also maximizes the potential for fun of watching Caleb Lomu and Spencer Fano go up against two great defensive ends.
There will be. And speaking of great, I mean, Utah and Tech have not played the best competition, as we just highlighted, but they've been great to start the year. Essentially, what we're going to do is I want to talk about some of the offensive numbers for Utah, defensive for Tech, and then we'll flip it over on the other side in a moment. So first, Utah ranks 14th in scoring offensively at 45 points per game, but Tech is only allowing 11 points per game, which is good for 22nd in the country. It's a top 10 run defense for Tech, only allowing 41 yards on the ground, third in the country, and they've only given up one rushing touchdown. Utah is top 10 when it comes to running the ball, averaging 6 yards per carry. You already mentioned that earlier, Brian. Also, fun fact about this Utah rushing offense. Hey, Brian, Utah already more rushing touchdowns this year than all of last year. They have 11. They only had 7 all of last year. That's a stat that just blew my mind with this Utah team. Already more rushing touchdowns this year than the previous season. Like, isn't that crazy, man?
I would not be surprised if you totaled it up if we have more points already this year than we did last season, because last season was a little bit light in the scoring department, and I think Utah's already at 130?
If you took away Utah's like 3 highest scoring games, like Southern Utah, Utah State, maybe even the Colorado one, like it would be close.
That's a little scary. It just goes to show how rough last season was, and why I think Utah fans are a little bit reticent to really buy in and believe in this team. But I think I'm going to give you another statistic. So EPA per rush for the University of Utah, they're at .030. What is EPA? That's expected points average. Is it average? I believe
I think so. Yes. Boom. Numbers. Big smart guy.
Expected points added. So it's the number of points that you're expected to add per play. A good EPA is anywhere from +10 to +20. And Utah is +30 in the rush game. So if you want to believe in this Utah team, believe in the strengths, the rushing game, the offensive line. I think DEVON Dampier really showing that he's bought into not turning the ball over and he wants to be a better quarterback, but also as he exhibited against Wyoming. And what I'm starting to underline is like, hey, this could be a potential Heisman moment, just no big deal. May or may not have had a hot take that he could be a Heisman contender.
You did?
That play where he dropped the football and then put it on a dime to Larry Simmons, and Simmons, Larry Simmons, all he had to do was just open his hands to catch the ball. And it was such a good throw that he was able to two-tap both those inbounds. Would have been good for the NFL, would have been good anywhere. I think that's where Utah fans can really bank on this offense in terms of, okay, there's reason to believe. I think Ryan Davis has started to establish himself. And to your point, they're putting points on the board, even if it's not through explosive plays. They're doing it in a way, in a fashion that really showcases that this team has the ability to move the football. It may not always look perfect. It may not look pretty. It may look very different from what you've seen in years past, but it's still effective. And I think at this point in the season, you're right where you want to be if you're Utah, in terms of you're playing maybe not quite your best football, but you're playing really good football, and you know what your identity is going in to play your best opponent in week 4.
Yeah, and oh man, by far the best. I think it's the best defense Devin Dampier will have ever played in his career, right, Brian? I mean, I don't even think it's close.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
sorry,
not,
Auburn. Sorry,
I'm not
Auburn.
sure that Montana State in the season opener last year is really going to compete with
who did beat
Texas Tech. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's a different level, I think. But to that end, you also have better surroundings when you're at Utah. You have better resources. I think Utah's running game is much better, much improved over New Mexico's last year. I think N'Keal Rogers is a good running back. He's a great change of pace back for what Utah has with Wayshawn Parker. But I think that Utah offensive line and far be it from me to point out the tight ends, but the tight ends have been fantastic this year. Dallin Bentley has been great. I think J.J. Buchanan has been a useful weapon, and I still don't think we've really seen the level to which Hunter Andrews can be used in this offense. But the bigger thing for me is the way Dallin Bentley has blocked. Boy.
Hey, don't mispronounce Utah players, venues, anything. We get ugly.
Yeah, I'm going to get run from the show for mispronunciation here. But wouldn't be the first time that I stumbled over my words on a podcast before. But I think that's been impressive to me. It's been so good that I can barely get it out of my mouth. We'll put it that way.
Tight end play has been probably the biggest pleasant surprise of this offense so far for me this year. But we just mentioned Devin Dampier. This is the best defense he's ever played. How's he going to fare against him? We're going to tell you in one moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by our great friends at Mazda. Because with Mazda, they help you move the game forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. This week's Mazda moment, I think that's going to be defining this game, is going to be a play that comes from Devin Dampier, just like last week when he drops the ball off a snap and that ends up picking up, throw for a touchdown. Devin Dampier is going to make another wow play. Dare I say, another Heisman play in this game. And he's going to, because he just has he has the dog in him, for lack of a better word, right? He's going to do what it takes. He's going to keep themselves moving forward, going forward, no matter what. Even a post-game interview that had a positive outlook, that is what Devin Dampier is going to deliver. And when you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like that, there's more to every highlight. There's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved when you test out and purchase a Mazda today. Today's show also brought to you by our friends at Wayfair. With Wayfair, you guys can head over today because the weather is cooling down. The days are getting shorter, and that has me wanting to make my home feel even cozier. And when it comes to cozying your space this fall, Wayfair is the place to go. Wayfair is everything you need to set the mood this season, whether it's comfy recliners, warm bedding, autumn decor, or even an espresso machine so you can make your favorite latte at home. I mean, I recently picked up a chair and it was like or even a blanket. I mean, there's just so many options they have that have completely transformed my space. I love Wayfair, and you can too. The delivery was fast, free, and hassle-free, which makes a huge difference when you're refreshing your home. It's the perfect time to set up your home for fall so you can enjoy cozy nights in and with your family and friends. Cozifying your space with Wayfair's curated collection of easy, affordable fall updates, from cozy recliners to cozy bedding and autumn decor. You'll find it all the way for less at wayfair.com. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. You can check out Wayfair today. All right, Brian, I want to roll off the rest of my offensive predictions for this Utah team and get your takes on them. So we mentioned Wayshawn Parker. He's going to have a day on the ground. Even though Texas Tech has had a really good run defense, let's keep in mind who they played: Arkansas Pine Bluff, Kent State, and Oregon State, whose coach is cussing about their special teams and not there in a positive manner about their play on the field, and a negative one. I think that Utah does best this Texas Tech defensive line. I think the Utah line wins this matchup, although I am curious, like Jaron Kump, this will be his biggest test yet. The interior offensive line, Tech's got some dudes at defensive tackle, and the two edge rushers are both fantastic. Obviously, Utah's two tackles are as well, so that's going to be a fantastic matchup up front. But I do think that Utah establishes the run game and go for 200 yards on the ground. Dampier, I got rushing for 80 yards overall. I think he's going to throw for over 200 still, 2 touchdowns. Tech has a defense. I think there's going to be times where they win the line of scrimmage 2 plays in a row. Dampier's going to have to make some plays in third and long. Utah's going to have to punt this game more than they have any other game on the year. Newsflash, it's the best team they've played, the best Devon Dampier's ever faced. But Dampier's ready for this moment. He's going to step up. He's going to make plays. I think Ryan Davis is the leading receiver with 50 yards receiving. I think Tobias Merriweather makes 2 big plays, about 60 yards for him. I'll go Bentley 40 yards, Simmons about 20, Stone gets 30. I got Wayshawn Parker grabbing a couple of checkdowns as well. And McGuire Rogers still going to get his 40 yards on the ground. I actually do think Dampier will get sacked twice in this game. It'll be the most he's sacked on the season. I think this will be that game of like, hey, it's not just P4 edge rushers. You played those last year, but these are NFL edge rushers. And I think he's going to hold on to it a little too long in that regard. I also don't think that Dylan Curtis will actually kick a field goal in this game. I think Utah's going to be incredibly aggressive on 4th down with how the freshman kicker looked last week, taking on Wyoming. So I think Utah does have a good game. I have them scoring 28 points in this game, Brian, but I don't think it's going to be smooth sailing because of how powerful this Tech defense is. I mean, Jacob Rodriguez at linebacker leads an incredible unit the Tech has on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I think it's a strong unit. I think if you look at the statistical matchups and the comparisons between them, you've got a number 3 ranked Utah offense in terms of EPA rush. Defensively, Tech is 47th. Now, if you look at it stat by stat in terms of just sheer numbers, the 3 top ranked teams in the Big 12 right now in rush defense are BYU, Texas Tech, and Utah. So in essence, you're going to get a lot of what you see every day in practice against this Tech defense. A stout defensive attack that's going to try and create some havoc for Utah. But I think there's a lot of that. I think really where if you're Tech, you want to try and force Utah in. I mean, the goal is always to force 3rd and longs, right? And you want to try and put pressure on Devon Dampier. You do that at your own risk because that's really where Devon Dampier is at his best. And I think the difference this year between Dampier and last year Devon Dampier is that while Utah's weapons at wide receiver are not elite, they're better than they were at New Mexico. And so the 50-50 balls that Devon used to have to throw, those are the ones where I just don't think you're gonna have to be super opportunistic if you're Texas Tech. And so I think they're gonna try and bring pressure early. But I think this is where Utah's offense is just so much different compared to years past. They have short passes and short throws that they can move the ball with that they haven't used in years past. And I just don't know that Tech can match up against some of the guys that Utah can throw out there with. Again, we talked about tight end group, Hunter Andrews, Lander Barton, and if Wayshawn Parker does start off the game the way that you and I both expect him to, that already puts Tech in a hole, and you're at elevation, and it's a 10 a.m. kick. So there's a lot of things that I think play in Utah's favor offensively. To your point, predicting the game and how it's going to go, that's always a struggle for me, because you never know when somebody's going to miss a handoff or if the nerves get to Utah or if there's something like that. Penalties are always something that you have to think about and worry about and wonder, is this going to be the game where they all show up? But I think if you're trying to talk to a Utah fan who's sitting at home right now, wringing their hands and super nervous about this game, there's a lot to talk about in my estimation. That's positive for Utah. And I think the stats bear it out. I think, to your point, I think Utah's played a better schedule.
They have.
Again,
no road games for Tech. No road games. That's crazy to me.
And you opened up on the road at the Rose Bowl at 9 p.m., 8 p.m. local time. I mean, that's still really late for a football game, even in California. So I think there is a lot that Utah has done to overcome and really get to this point in the season. I would like to see Dylan Curtis connect on a field goal just for his sake and just so that he doesn't have to run for the entirety of practice next week.
Kyle Whittingham. How much trust do you think is there after this past week?
I know that Kyle Whittingham sure conveyed his point to Dylan Curtis that missed field goals do not happen at the University of Utah, and so you better start making them. But I do think that Kyle has an understanding that this is a freshman kicker, right? And so he's going to pick and choose his times where he actually uses that in terms of, if they're going to kick one from over 50, it's probably going to be at the end of the half. Yeah. I do think that there is the way the game goes out is going to dictate a lot of it too. If you get some 4th and shorts and you're at the 35-yard line and the offense has been moving the ball, you may be more open to handing the ball off at that point. I sure would be. So I think that's going to dictate a lot of it. And the Tech defensive line may play the game of their life and prove me to be an idiot. I don't know. I just don't.
I'll be right there with you, though, champ.
Yeah, it's what can you be comfortable being wrong about? And if they do and they outplay this Utah offensive line, so be it. I haven't watched a ton of Tech tape. I've watched them enough to know that Baron Morton's really good.
He's really good.
That offense is really explosive. But I also know that Morgan Scalley and Kyle Whittingham both liked Matt Leftwich, so they've watched a lot of Matt Leftwich tape. So they're going to have a game plan in store for him. And I can guarantee you that as Kyle Whittingham is crossing things off his petty and vindictive list for this season, right underneath pizza is beating Matt Leftwich for going to Texas Tech.
I like it. Oh, here's a take for you. And I go back and forth on if I really want to commit to it yet, but I guess I will, since it's the last show before the game goes out. I think both these teams, because I have so much respect for their offensive coordinator, score on the opening drive.
Ooh, I like that. Especially because I think Utah just takes some time to get warmed up. And this Texas Tech offense is really, really good. And they're going to test that Utah secondary that has kind of taken its lumps. You know, you're going to be down Ravid Evans. He hasn't been around all season. I don't think Teo Johnson's really played up to expectations. I think Utah has tried to rotate corners and, you know, say what you will. Scalley's not going to bring – I have to be careful with how I phrase this because it's Morgan Scalley. You never know, and that's why he's so good. I don't think Scalley is going to force the pressure early unless he absolutely feels a need to. And so there's been a lot of conversation this week about how Utah's only been getting pressure with 4 guys and rushing 4 guys. And John Henry Daly's been great. You know, I think Logan Fano will be a full go this week, which is part of the reason why they managed his load, so to speak. I think that Utah is going to try and come out and start fast and really set the tone in this game on both sides of the ball. And so I think offensively that does mean you're going to try some things to really drive home the point that this is Rice-Eccles Stadium. We are at nearly 5,000 feet, and we're gonna play smash mouth, tough, gritty, fight you in a phone booth football for the next 60 minutes. So buckle your chin straps. And Morgan Scalley is going to do what Morgan Scalley does and scout the living daylights out of this Texas Tech offense and remind Mac Leftwich that, hey, you're going to have to keep playing me where you could have been in the room with me. So, and it's not that I'm saying that they're disrespecting Leftwich because he's a fantastic offensive coordinator and Utah knows that. I'm just saying that there is that little extra bit of motivation, and I think they're going to put forth the effort.
I totally agree. This Utah team is going to be fired up. The fans are going to be ready to fire up. You know, it's an early kickoff, so instead of getting eggs and bacon for breakfast, Tech's going to be getting a fullback, an offensive lineman lined up at fullback for breakfast, flying in their face. That's what the Red Raiders defense has to look forward to. But you mentioned a little bit like Baron Morton. He's really good. Tech's offense, they're really good. So is Utah defense. We're going to talk about that matchup a little bit more, and still come to. We got to still talk about Kyle Whittingham and his injury report saga in one moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by our friends at Square. Square has you covered because this episode is brought to you by Square, your favorite neighborhood sports run on Square. There are certain businesses that truly make the neighborhood feel like home, whether it's the local sports bar package on game day, the coffee shop that knows your order by heart, or the corner deli that's been serving your community for decades. These are the places that bring people together. When neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood thrives. You know, there's so many great local spots for Utah, whether it's Salt Lake City or anywhere in Utah, that make the community special, right? I mean, there's that energy during football season. If you have your breakfast you get on a Sunday morning before kickoff, or same thing on Saturday before kickoff, that it makes it special. And Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/lockedoncollege, all caps, no spaces, to learn more. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy you did. Square. See you in the neighborhood soon. Today's episode also brought to you by our friends at DoorDash. It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on DoorDash, who delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. For Utah, I think this weekend delivering is going to be DEVON Dampier, as I mentioned earlier. But we did Dampier earlier, so let's talk about Wayshawn Parker, right? I think he's going to be absolutely spectacular. 2 touchdowns, just making play after play. Gus Johnson will have some fun nickname he'll throw out about him, and then Joel in there too. So and he's going to go on a hot streak. I think that's going to keep rolling. And just like Wayshawn Parker is going to pick up a streak, you can get a streak going with DoorDash because they deliver your Saturdays with DoorDash Streaks. You save every Saturday you order, stack it up all season, and you can save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday, keep the streak alive, feel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply, and this promo ends November 18th. Build a streak with DoorDash. It's going to be so much fun, Brian, with Big Noon there as well. Urban Meyer coming back. I'm a big Joel Klatt guy, even before the whole like Death Taxes Utah football thing. I think there's almost Gus can really call a big play exceptionally well too. So I just love that Utah is getting like a pregame show there, this top level broadcast duo. I think that's awesome. How do you feel about all that?
Yeah, I think, you know what? I'll be honest. I think this is really important for the program. And I think there is an argument to be had that this is the most important game in terms of exposure and setting the tone for the future and whatever's going to happen with realignment moving forward since Utah played Alabama in the Sugar Bowl.
Oh, wow.
This is an opportunity where a national audience is going to view your football team and your football program, and you're going to have every opportunity to convert a lot of people into seeing your brand and your style of football in a way that Utah really hasn't had in a long time now. I think Rose Bowl was an opportunity. Pac-12 championship game was an opportunity.
To jump in with that Rose Bowl. Yeah. So I'll throw that right at you.
Yeah, Rose Bowl is a pretty big one. I think that Utah-Ohio State game will be one that is remembered in the national landscape for a long, long time. But I do think that moving forward, this is as good an opportunity as Utah has to make an impression as they've had. And so it's monumental. I think that's why, you're seeing Mark Harlan making the rounds on radio and asking people to show up early and show up loud and be supportive. And I think there is a lot of buzz around Big Noon being here and thank goodness Dave Portnoy found his way to Villaggio Pizza because that at least throws a little extra good karma in our direction in terms of, state. But I think it's huge for Utah football. I think it's huge for the state and the, what Utah is trying to do in becoming a sports hub. And I think, really, like, in some ways, we are kind of the last linchpin. It's like Utah, Oregon, and Washington with West Coast football because it's dying. Mm-hmm. And maybe USC's starting to show signs of life. Maybe
I think USC could really. We don't have time for this. I think USC's going to be really good this year.
I love Makai Lemon. I really do. And Mayava's good. And Lincoln's finally got guys who can block and they're running the ball. I think that was always the problem with USC was that they just didn't have the run game that Lincoln needs to have for his offense to function. But this is important in a lot of ways because West Coast football matters. It is so it is so important to maintain those regional stuff and everything like that. So it's huge, and I think it's a great opportunity for Utah to showcase not only what's going on here with this season, but also what this team and what this program and what this school is capable of doing. When the next round of realignment comes, and that they should be a part of the haves.
Mm-hmm. And I think that Utah will prove that. And I think part of the reason they're going to do that is this dominant defense. They got their hands cut out for them in this Texas Tech offense. I mean, the Tech offense currently leads the nation in scoring at 58 points per game, but Utah does have a top 10 defense, allowing just 7 points per game. It's good for 8th in the country. They're holding teams to 230 yards per game. Tech's offense averages 600 yards per game. I think both that 600 yards per game and especially that 58 points per game is going to fall like a cartoon piano being dropped on someone, basically. That's how I see those numbers absolutely plummeting in this one because I think this Utah defense is ready to go. It's also, Baron Morton in his last 3 road games against top 25 teams, mentioned this stat yesterday, thrown 5 interceptions, just 3 touchdowns. His PFF grade at home versus on the road drastically drops at home 80, road 59, when given a clean pocket 86, when under pressure 35. And this is a Utah team that's going to get after it. John Henry Daly, nation's leader in sacks as well too. And I do think Utah is going to get home with some pressures. Brian, this is a Tech offensive line. They returned just 1 starter from a season ago. So they brought in some upgrades, but those upgrades are playing in their first ever road hostile environment, having to deal with the altitude and communicate with Morgan Scalley sending just crazy crap at your face. That's a lot. I have Utah getting home for 4 sacks in this game. John Henry Daly once, Logan Fano once. Also go with Lander Barton and Jonathan Hall to get home on some blitzes as well. And Tech is good on Tech is okay in 3rd and long. So if you're Utah, how many blitzes do you send? Things of that nature. I think you send blitzes still. You just got to be careful with how you don't want. I don't want to blitz 8. Like Utah's been really crazy with some of their blitzes. I think Morton can beat you with that really good throw. But I do think Morton under duress, I think he actually is going to end up turning it over a couple times in this one too. I got Teo Johnson, Jackson Benny getting some picks. Morton will go over 300 yards because I don't think Tech's going to have a ton of success running the ball because of that offensive line, Brian. But I think Utah makes enough plays in this one too. I also think, Lander's going to step up, lead this team in tackles. I like this Utah defense to have a day. I think Tech gets 27. I have Utah winning 28-27. But I do think that Utah is able to force a couple field goals that Tech's going to have to make in this game. And I think they come through in some big spots. They'll bend a little bit. Like I said, more than 300 yards passing. But I think this Utah defense is up for the task. That is one of the best offenses that money can buy.
Yeah, I think really what it's going to come down to is, can Utah slow down the number of plays per game with Texas Tech? Because when it's cooking, it's 80, 85 plays a game. They had 61 against Arkansas Pine Bluff. They had 80 against Kent State, 81 against Oregon State. And like you mentioned, 600, legitimately 600 yards per game in each of those affairs, 608, 601, 599. So they're going to put up yardage. But I think for Utah, it's, can you get to them early? Can you get them into third down? Can you create enough havoc to where they're not reeling off those up-tempo, speedy drives? And how do you slow that down? I think the slow substitution has been one of those things, one of those sneaky schematic things that Morgan Scalley's come up with. And
Wyoming
talk about this.
They didn't do it in Wyoming, right? There was issues with it.
Well, they wouldn't let them, right?
Yeah, they wouldn't let them.
Yeah, and Kyle never got clarification from the officials on that one, so I guarantee you somebody's getting an angry letter from Kyle Whittingham about how this is within the rules. And we can talk about that in regards to the injury report a little bit later on, and why Kyle Whittingham would be the best defense attorney that you could hire in that regards. But I think that Morgan Scalley will have something cooked up that is going to limit what this Texas Tech offense can do in terms of getting up and down the field, because they understand better than anybody else that it's the tempo that you have to disrupt, because this is a true air raid, up-tempo, move the ball kind of system. It is predicated on being able to run the ball as well. They are down the great running back that's out for the season, and his name escapes me at this point in time, but he hasn't played a game for him anyway, so it's not like it's an immediate loss. But I would expect to see some 3 safety looks from Morgan Scalley. I would expect to see some cowboy package stuff. They're going to throw some things at Texas Tech that they haven't seen for a while.
Explain cowboy package.
Cowboy is basically Utah's dime package, where you go 3 down linemen, 3 linebackers, and 6 defensive backs. But I think that's really where Utah excels, because they're able to bring pressure and blitzes from all sorts of variations and whatnot. And I think, personnel wise, it's one of those situations where if you do happen to get Texas Tech in 3rd and long, you can do some things with John Henry Daly, where he's actually coming from a 5 tech and maybe disrupting some stuff that way. You can use Lander Barton as a pressure package guy. That's something that I don't think we've seen a ton this year. And truly, we have not seen a lot of safety blitzes and corner blitzes. I expect that you'll see some stuff like that as well, just because Morgan loves it. And as a former safety, I totally understand why he loves it. But I do think, schematically, it's going to be a battle in that regard, because I think, Tech is built to move the football and get a lot of plays up. And so, if you're a fan watching at home and you're wondering how this one's going to go, just watch the play count.
Brian, who wins?
I have Utah winning. I have them winning 34-23, I think was the pick that I made.
Whoa, what did you say?
34-23.
Oh, 34-20. I thought I heard 44 for a second. That's why I was like, wow, 20.
That's a lot. Dang. Yeah, no, and I wouldn't put it past this Utah offense to be able to put points up on a Texas Tech defense, especially one that, hasn't seen this level of rushing attack. I think that does, if Wayshawn Parker does go off the way that we expect him to, that could be a potential, right? If you start breaking off big runs, it's an easy way to beat down a defense. I think at the end of the day, it comes down to QB versus QB and coaching staff versus coaching staff and trenches, right? Trenches, I'm going to give Utah the edge on the offensive line. Defensive line, it's maybe even a little bit more maybe to the edge of Texas Tech, but I think, to some extent we and some of it will depend on, how legitimate this Carson Kavusi injury is, because that's a pretty significant loss if Utah's not able to have him on Saturday. But I think this Tech team has been put together in a matter of a couple months in some areas. I think Utah's been built up a little bit more from the ground up. But I think the biggest thing is that the culture and the coaching staff at Utah is I don't think there's anybody in the country outside of Tech fans and maybe some people out in Texas. And, there's a lot of Joey McGuire fans out there, so I should be a little more careful with my words. But I don't think most people, the grand public, would take Texas Tech staff over Utah's coaching staff. And so I think those are all things that, in addition to being home in a morning game, and I don't know if you read Josh Furlong's article about how Utah's played in the morning, but they're pretty darn good. I think all that stuff gets Utah the win.
Kyle Whittingham has his team fired up early, ready to play. You know what fires up Kyle Whittingham? Having to release an injury report. My goodness, Kyle. I mean, come on, man. We're running out of time here, so we will go in on this another episode. Brian, I just think it's ridiculous. The rest of the Big 12 is abiding by the rule. They are releasing their injury reports, questionable, doubtful, all of that. With Kyle just added doubtful on there. I just have a hard time believing that Utah is no one questionable in this game. I think Kyle is doing everything in his power to skirt this rule. I think it's a bad look on the university. I think it's a bad look on Kyle. Just release it. Like, Kyle, you are one of the best coaches in college football today. Like, why do you need to do all these little gamesmanship and slight things for competitive advantage? We saw Deshaun Foster try to do like his, not letting the media see this and see that. And then how'd that work out? I think this stuff goes way too far. I think this is where Witt is being absolutely ridiculous, in my opinion. And it frustrates me that he is going to this level of petty to try and cover this stuff up when the rest of the Big 12 is abiding by it. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if he got a fine for it.
And it may be in Kyle's best interest to just pay the fine every year as long as they get the wins, and he truly believes that it's competitive advantage. And it's why I said, if you ever need a defense attorney, you might want to hire Kyle Whittingham, because he's going to find the technicality and he's going to find the loophole, just like they have with the slow substitution, just like they have in years past. He's going to find whatever competitive advantage. He is going to seek that out, no matter how small, no matter how diminutive, no matter how unimportant it may seem to the rest of us. He's going to find it. He's going to exploit it, and he's going to get you off the hook. And so if it does end up with him having to pay a fine, but they get the win, Kyle's going to do that, because I don't want to say it's Kyle Whittingham's revenge tour, but I think we've seen early on from Kyle that he took a lot of notes in the offseason, and I'm not going to be so egotistical to say that he was reading my tweets and listening in on our conversations, but he's clearly heard a lot of the chatter and the buzz about what everybody thought about last Utah football season, and is out to rectify all of it. And I think he wants to prove a point that he thinks it's a competitive advantage, and if it's worth it to him to do it, so be it. I still believe that you just do a disservice to your fan base. You do a disservice to your team, because you put them in a tough situation. The guys who are injured don't get a fair shot. I think we saw that play out to a miserable end with Cam Rising last year, and I still feel like we haven't done enough to really mend that relationship and rectify what happened with that, because it wasn't Cam's fault.
No.
And I think if you'd had this last year, we would have known early on that Cam wasn't going to play, unless Kyle's going to have to learn this lesson the hard way if it is going to come back to bite him. But if it's just paying a fine, it does eat at two sides of Kyle Whittingham, because I think he is a very fiscally conservative individual, but also he wants to win football games at all costs. And if he believes it's that important to him, then that's what he's going to do. But Kyle's going to Kyle, man. He's that guy that if you're trying to fix a door, he's going to go fix it for you, and he's going to show you that he's the smartest guy in the room, because a lot of times he is.
There's so many people have won the highest level, releasing injury reports and just everything. But it's like you said, he's just old habits die hard, right, Brian? So we'll see what ends up happening with this. Any final thoughts before we get out of here, friend?
I'm assuming this drops Friday, because we're recording.
Yes, it will.
Recording Thursday night.
Boom.
For Utah fans who have kind of been reticent to really jump on board, these opportunities only come along so often. Win or lose, it's going to be a great Saturday. It's going to be a great opportunity to showcase the university. Most people aren't going to remember what the results of this game are. Utah fans definitely will, win or lose, and they'll probably remember it even more if it's a loss. But as I once heard someone say at an LSU home game after they lost, so this will probably put a damper on the party, and the response there was, we played a football game. That was it. The party's still going on no matter what. And I think, if you're a Utah football fan, look forward to the party. Look forward to enjoying Big Noon kickoff. Look forward to the fact that your program is back where it should be after just 3 weeks into this season. And I think at times it looked like it was very, very dark last season. And like I said, this just doesn't happen all the time. Winning is hard. What Utah's done is hard. And so just enjoy it. And the result may not end up being in our favor, but if it's not, so be it. We got to be on the main stage, and week 4 was almost all ours for, a significant amount of time. So just enjoy that.
Just enjoy it. That's what I tell everyone whenever they get to listen to you coming on Locked On Utes, my friend. Thank you so much for making the time, Bryan. Make sure you guys go give him a follow at Brown Bear SLC. Bryan, you're the best, man. Thanks again.
Thank you. Just nothing but pizza takes on the Twitter account. So
well, there's going to be a lot. It's a busy week for pizza takes in Salt Lake City. We know that for sure. And it's a busy weekend because we have finally reached Utah, Texas Tech. Cannot wait to talk about the game. We'll be going live later in the day on Saturday to talk about it on this feed, but so excited to have Utah, Texas Tech. Big noon kickoff. It's almost here. We cannot wait to break it all down and react to all the action on Locked On Utes after the game and next week. Thank you for making us your first listen and view of the game. We'll see you soon.